Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who all learned this truth from him do well. Peace and salutations to 144,000, the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Until I say shalom. Coming to you back with another Let's Do the Spirit. And I'm entitled this one, Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Going into the two nations that would be ruling the planet Earth for a period of time. Esau, Edom, being the one who would be ruling it for a short period of time and then eventually go down. And Jacob, which is Israel, which today would be the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which are the true Israelites, and Esau, Edom being the self-proclaimed white people, which are the descendants of Esau, Edom, which is the twin brother of Jacob. These two nations would be given the blessing to rule the entire planet Earth, which the nation of Israel was in complete rulership of the entire known world at that time, during the time of King David and King Solomon, which Israel had a sneak peek of the kingdom of heaven, but they didn't have the law, statute, commandments written in the inward parts, and that's ultimately why the nation of Israel fell and was led into captivity up until this day. And then right after, you had all these different heathens that took the nation of Israel, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, under captivity. And even up until this day, we're still in that last beast, that revived Roman Empire, which is soon to fall, and it's falling. It's clear and evident. And after the Roman Empire falls, this revived Roman Empire, this beast system being ran by the so-called white man, which is Esau, Edom. After that, after this kingdom falls, you have all these different nations that are trying to be the next superpower, from China and Russia, but ultimately the one who has next is going to be the nation of Israel, starting with the elect, starting with Yahushai, the 12, and the rest of the 144,000. Not no damn China, not no damn Russia. And that's why this devil is scrambling so hard to get his NWO system up and running, because he knows that he has a short time. So very soon, he's going to come down with that great wrath. He's going to come with that martial law, the mass implementation of the MOTB, to try to get everybody micro C-hipped up. And he is going to micro C-hip up a lot of people, implant that MOTB inside a lot of people. But like it says in, I think it's Job chapter 20, when he's about to fill his belly, that's when Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is going to throw that monkey wrench, and his plans are going to fall. So we know that this devil doesn't have very long by all the signs that are pointing toward the downfall of his kingdom. This is 2 Ezra chapter 6 and verse 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So right now we're in the current rulership of Esau, Edom, which today will be the self-proclaimed white man. And ultimately, we know that his time of ruling is coming to end very soon. And all the signs are pointing towards that. That this devil don't have a lot of time to rule left. That's why he's coming down with that great wrath, all these different draconian laws to try to do away with Jake, but we know that that's not going to happen. And when he does make those moves, that's when that standard is going to be lifted. And that's when this devil's going to be on a ticking time bomb. And he's already on a ticking time bomb. He's on borrowed time. But once he makes that move, it's over. That's when the days are really going to be speeding up, because the days are already being shortened. But how much more when this devil makes his move, when he crashes the system, when he makes the MOTB made mandatory? That's when Yahweh Bashim Shai is really going to speed things up. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 9 and verse 1. And it reads, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself. And when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, verse 2, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. And it's clear and evident that we're in the last days of the last days. Like it says in Habakkuk chapter 2, though it tarry, at the end it shall speak. And it is these prophecies, the visions, they're speaking loud and clear. But only the elect of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua would understand that the time of this devil ruling, this so-called white man ruling, is almost over. But yeah, you got a lot of Israelites that know that they're Israelites. Those are the circumcision that claim that America, its current age, current aeon being ran by the white man, that we have another 50, 100, 500, 1,000 years left. But it's clear and evident that we don't have no damn 1,000, no damn 100 years left. Because every empire, the average length of an empire is right around 250 years, and America is right at that point. So we know that this devil is pretty much out of here, but Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is going to do things according to his own time, not according to these false prophets and these Christian pastors claiming that prosperity doctrine to go get you a bag and go build generational wealth when his kingdom is clearly fallen. Why would you try to build in furnish, put all these different furniture in a burning house, in a house that the foundation is cracked and the roof is caving in? Wow, that's Jake. But ultimately, that's why Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is gonna destroy majority of our people, because they want to stay here. They want to stay in Esau, Edom's kingdom. They want to make this their rest. But it's clear and evident that Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is visiting the world with all these different signs in the sky, all these blood moons, these solar eclipses. Verse 3, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world. Verse 4, then shalt thou will understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. So you clearly got earthquakes and uproars of the people. You got all these mass riots going around in the world. Because people are tired of this government. They're tired of the white man. They're tired of how he's ruling the planet Earth. They're tired of his ways. Him coming down with the sword. If you deny him imposing his laws and his currency, him establishing all these different embassies and military bases, people are tired of the devil. That's why you have all these uproars, all these insurrections against the governments of the world, because people are tired of this devil, and it's clear and evident. And then also you got earthquakes. You just had an earthquake about a week ago, wipe out around 2,000 plus people at one time. So Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is ready to wipe out and delete a large amount of people at once, and he's already doing it by all these so-called natural disasters. And even if it's Esau, Edom using his weather modifications weapons, ultimately it was Yahweh Bashim Yahushua who gave this devil the technology to do away with these people. Verse 4, then shalt thou will understand that the Most High spake of those. I already read that, but I'll read it again. Then shalt thou will understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the very beginning. So all these prophecies, all these visions were already written, before we were born, before we even came into this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. But now that we're in the last days, the seals have been broken. Now the prophets know way more before than the ancient prophets, because before the ancient prophets of the the ancient days, thousands of years ago, they wrote these prophecies and they seen the visions, but they wrote what they what they could describe it during their times. But now that the knowledge has been increased in these last days, now the prophets of today, starting where our elders and apostles, bishops on down, they've broken down the prophecies and the visions and made it clear upon tables through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Shai. That what allow us to understand that ultimately we're in the last days, and the time of this devil being in rulership is coming to an end very soon. Verse 5, for like as all that is made in the world had a beginning and an end, and the end is manifested, and the end is clearly being manifested, that the time of this devil being in rulership is almost over. And ultimately we're looking forward to that, because we know once this devil comes down with that great wrath, he's out of here. And time is only going to speed up more and more and more. And that kingdom of heaven is right there at that it's that light at the end of the tunnel, but only the elect can see that light at the end of the tunnel, while the rest of these 2/3 Jakes and these heathens, they're looking at their kingdom, their empire crumble right before their eyes, so they're bugging out. It says Matthew chapter 24 and verse 3, and he sat up on the Mount of Olives. The disciples came unto him privily, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? So, these are the 12 disciples. The letter became apostles coming to Yahweh Shai, asking him, like, what was going to be the sign of your second coming? The end of the world, which is ultimately is going to the end of the aeon, the end of the age, because the whole world abided forever. The world is not going to blow up into a billion pieces, and ultimately is talking about the end of a rulership, which who's currently ruling this world. Like it says, Job chapter 9 and verse 24, the hands are given into the hand of the wicked, going into the wicked of this world, which are the so-called white people, which are the descendants of Esau, Edom, the Edomites. Verse 4, and Yahweh shall answer and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. So, don't take heed to these false prophets telling you that we're not in the last days, that we got another 1,000 years, especially these Christians, these Christian pastors, these Christian churches claiming that, we got a long timer. So make yourself comfortable, make yourself at home, make this your rest, teaching that prosperity doctrine bullshit. But the elect aren't going to be deceived by these false prophets. But the 2/3 of these jakes, these wicked jakes, they're going to be taken by these false prophets. Verse 5, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Hamashiach, I am the anointed, and shall deceive many. And a lot of jakes and even Israelites that know that they're Israelites, that have been deceived by these false prophets. Especially these other Israelite camp leaders that are teaching false doctrine. Shit, they're making themselves to be the, they want Yahweh Shai's position. That's why they exalt themselves so high. They make them the ministry more about them than Yahweh Shai. So ultimately, that's why Yahweh Bashim Shai is going to have to do away with these false prophets. Verse 6, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing all these wars and rumors of wars. You got Ukraine versus Russia. You got Taiwan versus China. You got Iran versus Israel. You got India versus Pakistan. And now you got the U.S. being dragged out to this Iran versus Israel war. These are all signs that big battle of Armageddon is ready to be, pretty much set up. All that needs to happen is that collapse of the dollar, which is going to mass implement that MOTB. And once that happens, that's when that third world war is going to really get hot, and those missiles are going to be shot. But ultimately we're not at that point yet. We know that the MOTB has to be made mandatory first. The system has to collapse. Martial law has to be implemented. And then once that MOTB gets made mandatory to the point that you can no longer work, have a job, have a house, pay rent, Go to the grocery stores, and ultimately this place is through. Verse 7, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And that's what's happening. Now you have, the Esau, Edom divided against himself. And ultimately, if Satan be divided against himself, then his kingdom can't stand. And that's what's happening. That's why this kingdom is collapsing. And you got famines, especially here in America, with the northern kingdom being deported and no longer working at these farms. You got these farmers that aren't able to plant crops because there's no rain. That's ultimately Yahweh Bashmiel Shai sending all these plagues upon America and upon the planet Earth, just like he did in Egypt. And then you got pestilences, all these different diseases, all these unknown viruses coming out of nowhere. You got the Black Plague coming back. That's ultimately signs that Yahweh Bashmiel Shai is about to do away with this kingdom. He's about to do away with Esau, Edom being in power. Verse 8, all these are the beginning of sorrow. So ultimately, we know we're at the very end, but there's still some prophecies that have to come to pass. Those two major ones being the mass implementation of the MOTB, then that Third World War. And then once it gets to the point where you can no longer participate in society, you can no longer buy and sell it, and that's when Yahweh Bashmiel Shai is gonna, Yahweh Shai is gonna come back in the fathership and deliver his elect, and also destroy America through the ICBMs, and also, bring this devil down from rulership. And that's what we're looking forward to. We're not looking forward to another 1,100 years here in America. No, we're looking forward towards the kingdom of heaven, but only the elect of Yahweh Bashmiel Shai are going to truly have that mindset. Unlike these 2/3, they want Esau, Edom to continue to be in powership so they can continue to be wicked as all hell. This is 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 13. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. And that's what we're looking forward to. We're looking forward towards the kingdom of heaven. It's going to be established here on the planet Earth, not in no damn floating in the sky with Edomite babies, naked Edomite babies shooting arrows. No, the kingdom of heaven is going to be established here upon the planet Earth, where the nation of Israel, starting with Yahweh Shai, the 12, the 144,000, and the rest of the 1/3 are going to be the governing body. While the rest of these heathen nations that have had us in subjection all these decades, years, they're going to be the ones that are going to go into slavery, because all the atrocities, the abominations, the putting Jake to death, all these heathens have nothing but slavery reserved for them. And especially these so-called white people, which are these Edomites, they got nothing good to look forward to but a 1,000 long hardcore year slavery, and then after that, extinction. And that's another thing we're looking forward to, is doing away with these Edomites, because we're truly tired of looking at Esau, Edom. And ultimately the new bodies, the second covenant, the new covenant, where we're going to have the laws, statutes, commandments written in our inward parts, never to go off ever again. And if we never go off, then ultimately that leads to immortality, because the wages of sin are death. And if we can't sin, then we can't die. But yet Jake wants to stay here in polluted ass Babylon the Great in America. Jake wants to continue to eat McDonald's and go to their 9 to 5s and play 2K. That's what a 2/3 Jake wants. It is Isaiah 65 and verse 17. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered, nor come into mind. And we're not going to remember this bullshit ass place that we call America, Babylon the Great. Yeah, we're going to, look back at it, but we're not going to be like, oh shit, damn, I miss America. I miss Babylon the Great. I miss being in slavery and in subjection. That's the mindset that Jake was in the wilderness. They wanted to go back to Egypt. They wanted to go back to the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks. Jake was always in that wilderness mindset. But Once we get put into those new bodies, we're not going to remember Babylon the Great. We're not going to remember Starbucks and Popeyes and McDonald's and churches. All this shit is going to be left here to be burnt up. This is Sirach chapter 10 and verse 4. The power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable. So ultimately, the only reason why this so-called white man was put in rulership is because he was given that blessing by Isaac. And also to be an example of how not to rule the planet Earth. What happens when you touch the apple of the Heavenly Father's eye, the nation of Israel. To be an example of what happens when your sins reach to the heavens. What is going to be the end of Esau, Edom? And all these nations, everybody's going to be there to see what's going to happen to this damn devil at the end. Verse 8, because of unrighteousness, dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. And that's how this devil got all these riches, through unrighteous dealings. When he came over here to the Americas, and Gad welcomed him in and made those contracts. He broke the contracts. He stabbed Gad in the back, literally. He gave him blankets with smallpox. That's how you know who the devil is. This so-called white man. Riches, injuries, got by deceit. He brought the Southern Kingdom. He made them serve slavery. This devil has gotten these riches by ill-gotten means. So Yahweh Shemel Shai is about to take all these riches that this devil got, throughout the years, and they're going to be translated to the nation of Israel. When he gets brought down, when America gets destroyed by the intercontinental ballistic missiles and the elect get delivered, that's when the kingdom is going to start. And that's when the downfall of Esau, Edom has started. And eventually he's going to be pulled away from all these bunkers, all these clefts of the rock that he's in. And he's going to be put in slavery. And the nation of Israel is going to be set up on top. That's pretty much the point. I pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who are learned the truth from and who do well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude. Unto you I say shalom.